Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to our class in Foundations of Social Studies. Kumusta naman mo? I hope you are all fine and in good shape, safe from COVID-19. So, in our last lesson, we talked about the concept of growth and development. I hope you now have a deeper understanding of these concepts because it is important as future teachers of social studies, you are able to really understand what is the meaning of growth and development in relation to society because these are very important, especially in our discussion, in your discussion about social problems in the future when you will be teachers. Now, this afternoon, we are going to explore another important concept that is very much used and applicable in social studies, and that is self-reliance. So, at the end of this lesson, it is expected that you will be able to explain what is self-reliance and also demonstrate how important is self-reliance to each and every one of us as members of the society, and self-reliance in relation to the society and country in general. And of course, we will be able, or you will be able, to demonstrate how important self-reliance is. So, how are we going to describe self-reliance? Do you have any idea of what self-reliance is? Yes, of course. One of the idea that we can relate to self-reliance is independence. What else? Okay? It also connotes doing things by yourself or by myself. Meaning to say, I can do things without being dependent to others. I can do it on my own. I can decide for myself. If I want to go to the city, I can go to the city without asking permission from anybody else or without the help and assistance of other people. I can do it by myself. That is self-reliance. So if you are self-reliant, you are an independent person. If you are a self-reliant individual, then you are an autonomous individual. Meaning to say, there is nothing and there is nobody controlling your actions and your decisions in life. How about you? Can you say that you are a self-reliant individual? Have you enjoyed self-reliance? Well, of course, in some ways, you are able to experience self-reliance. For example, you can already do things for yourself. Eating, unlike a toddler or an infant, wherein they cannot feed themselves unless they are being fed by your parents, you can eat if you want to without waiting and without being dependent on other persons. You can wash yourself, you can clean up yourself. These things are manifestations of self-reliance, meaning to say you can do things by yourself, especially those things that are pertaining to yourself or to your body. But perhaps for some other factors, you have not enjoyed self-reliance. For example, when you need to buy something, you want a pair of jeans or perhaps a new cell phone, even if you want to, but because you have no resources, you have no money to buy, then you have to depend on your parents. You have to ask money from your parents so that you can buy what you want. Why? because as of this moment, you are not yet earning money for yourself. But once you are already professional and you are already teaching or working, then you will have an income of your own. Then you can already be considered financially independent and you are self-reliant. Meaning to say, you can already buy things that you want to buy without being dependent on other persons. What else? What other experiences that you have that will tell you whether or not you are self-reliant? Well, as a citizen of the country, as Filipinos, we can exercise and show our self-reliance comes national elections. Di ba? Init-init na ang panahon karon because we have learned and we have known that some personalities have decided to run for an office. Now, during the time that we cast our votes, that is one of the highest manifestation of our self-reliance if we are able to vote and choose the person that we want to hold office without being influenced by other people. When you cast your vote, when you choose the persons whom you want to run the office, you do it by your own will. You do it by your own judgment without being dependent on what other people will tell you or dictate you. Okay? Nobody can force you, nobody can influence you, but only yourself. That is one of the highest expressions of being self-reliant in relation to being a citizen of the country. If in case during that day, election day, that would be on May 9, when you cast your vote, you choose a candidate because this is what being told by other people, then you are not self-reliant. Meaning to say, you are not empowered because your decision is dependent. Your decision is based on what other people are telling you. As a self-reliant person, perhaps you may hear what other people will say, but in the end, it is your own choice, it is your own decision that will prevail. That is a sign that you are a self-reliant individual. So, being self-reliant is important to an individual because if you are self-reliant, then you can be a person who is free. You will enjoy freedom because you are not afraid of what other people will say. No matter what they say, you will do what you want to do because you are self-reliant. You don't need them. You are not dependent on them. An individual who doesn't have self-reliance is an individual who is dependent on others. He cannot do things without the assistance and help of other persons. He cannot decide for himself. He waits others to decide for himself. That person is not free. Have you seen somebody who is like that? A person who cannot decide for himself? Imong amigo or imong amiga, for example, imong ingnon, tanata, mga ligo ta og dagat. Then she will say, na, wa pa man si nanay, wa man ko'y kapananghiran. Or, a classmate, for example, who cannot make his own assignment because he has to copy the assignment of his classmates. Precisely, that is one reason why some or many of the students are clamoring to go back to the face-to-face, to the usual setup in the conduct of classes. Because while in class, when there are assignments or activities, a student can always seek the help and assistance from his or her classmates. Unlike today, when classes are held online and you are isolated in your own home, it would be difficult for you to ask the assistance of your classmates. So the setup or the present setup that we have at the moment is an avenue wherein you can demonstrate your self-reliance, meaning to say you can learn on your own. You can learn without being dependent on your classmates. No? That is why I observe that there are a number of students who have the difficulty of coping with the demands of the present setup as far as learning is concerned, because they've been used to being dependent on their classmates. They cannot do things by themselves. So they are not self-reliant individual. In the context of society, a country, for example, cannot be said to exercise its freedom and independence if the country is dependent on other countries. For example, a poor country without its resources will have to be dependent on rich countries, because it would be the rich countries that would provide for the needs to that poor country. And so, in policy making, that poor country cannot make it by itself, meaning to say, whatever policies, laws that will be passed in that particular country, it has to have the concurrence or the approval of the rich country, or else that rich country will withdraw the assistance that is being given to the poor country. So the poor country is dependent on the rich country, and therefore that poor country has no right to exercise self-reliance. That's how important self-reliance is. If a person is self-reliant, meaning to say that individual depends on nobody but himself, then he can do things and he is a free individual. That is why it is very important that each of us, you yourself, will develop self-reliance. And how can we do it? Of course, we have to develop our skills and our talents and abilities. Meaning to say, we have to discover what we have. What is your talent? You have your intelligence. You cultivate that. You develop that so that whenever opportunities will come, you will not be dependent on other persons or individuals. You can do it by yourself and you can make it because you have made yourself an independent individual. Okay? So you develop yourself, develop your skills, develop your abilities, and then you will become self-reliant. It starts from the self. Once you are an independent individual, once you are a self-reliant person, then everything will follow. You will exercise your freedom and you can assert your autonomy. So, as a social studies teacher in the future, it is very important that you will be able to influence your students of being self-reliant. And it starts in you. You have to be self-reliant first before your students will follow what you have done. So as we end this lesson, what I want to impart with you first and foremost is that you exercise from this day onward being self-reliant. Thank you and good afternoon.